Command Point now has merch. Link in the description. Hello everybody and welcome back to Command Point. My name's Ryan and today I'm here with Shane.
Hello.
Your Atlantic City Open 2023 Kill Team Champion. Congratulations, Shane.
Thank you. It was fun. It was a good tournament.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but I guess outside of that, Shane, how are you doing?
I'm tired. It's been like a nonstop thing. So we got to AC on Thursday evening, and then on Friday we played in the Marvel Crisis Protocol team tournament. That was 3 games. And then on Saturday we played 3 rounds of Kill Team, and then on Sunday we played 2 rounds of Kill Team, and then we drove back, and then I had to go to work on Monday morning, and it's Tuesday, and I'm really tired.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too. Before we get into, I guess, talking about the tournament itself and stuff, I want to give Travis a big shout out for TOing the event, traveling across the country just to TO that event. It means a lot to a lot of people in the Kill Team community and all of the Brooklyn Rats, guys and gals, helping out, get that tournament set up, get all the terrain set up in time for that tournament. We're really blessed to have a community like the Brooklyn Rats and a TO like Travis to get something like that organized and all set up and everything. It was a fantastic tournament. Coming up in the fall, I believe in November, they're going to be hosting the New York Open Kill Team tournament. So if anybody wants to go and partake in one of those awesome events that they put on, I will leave a link in the description of this episode or somewhere in a pinned comment in the comment section down below where you can go and get tickets for that and find out some more information.
I also just found out today that Travis is also TOing an event called the Goonhammer Open in August. And it's going to be in Baltimore, Maryland. That's another event that he'll be running if you're interested in going to any of his events. He's a really good TO, and I thought he did a really good job at Atlantic City.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Shane. So you took Chaos Cult down to the Atlantic City Open. Why did you want to take this particular team to this event?
Well, I really wanted to take a team that is notoriously underpowered and try to make them shine a little bit. No, that's not why. No, Chaos Cults, I think people are starting to realize at this point, if they don't already, they're extremely broken. I typically don't take the most strong thing. I don't think I've ever gone to a tournament and taken something that we had on our own tier list at the time. Usually I like to come up with the answers. Like I'll find a team that I find to be strong that I enjoy, and I try to come up with different answers to different things in the meta. This is the first time I felt like I couldn't come up with anything. Like I didn't have a real answer to like a problem team. And I was thinking about taking Legionaries. I thought about taking a few teams actually, but Chaos Cults is just, they're kind of beyond, in my opinion. I wanted to take them. I didn't have as much practice on them coming into the event, but it didn't really matter to me. I just felt like the practice I did have, I felt was pretty important, I guess. And I felt prepared enough to try and win with them.
Yeah, so how many prep games with the team did you actually get in? Because this is a very new team, so I imagine not that many players had a lot of prep with them.
Yeah, I probably played like 5 games, but I played a few games against them too, quite a few. So all in all, I probably played like 10 games as or against them. And I think I played as them 5 times before ACO. For what it's worth, the games I was playing as them, I was actively trying to only play, at least near the end, I was trying to actively play in situations that I thought were unfavorable. Like I pretty much refused to play practice games on Into the Dark or on the capture mission with them because they're already so strong in those situations. So I was practicing mostly on like really open boards, like Octarius open, looter secure pretty much every time. Ideally, I'd pick a board with like a bad deployment zone with like a lot of like open space that my opponent could exploit just to stress test the team and try to force myself to get better at getting out of tough spots with them, because I think they're so good at the things they're good at that to me, it didn't even seem like that worth practicing, honestly. And I don't think that's a me thing. I think that's just a Chaos Cult thing.
For those of, I guess for our listeners who don't know anything about Chaos Cult, what is the team breakdown? What does the team look like? And what makes the team so violently overpowered in this current kill team meta?
Well, I think it's like a cascade of things. Well, first of all, the team just is, and I didn't really see it on paper when I first looked at the rules, but it wasn't until I like saw them on the board and played against them that it clicked for me that like, whoa, this team is a lot. Like as far as the team itself, like 15 bodies is a lot. Gellerpox has 15 bodies and like half of them can't do anything. And that's like very much by design. And Gellerpox is a really strong team. This team, all 15 models are like capable of doing things. Like they can all be very, very useful. They're not just good at one thing. Like with Gellerpox, like the glitchlings are basically good at one thing, and the mutants are like okay at certain things, but they have huge drawbacks, and that doesn't seem to be the case with Chaos Cults. So that's 10 cultists that are by their own right not bad models. They're 7 wounds, 5 up save. They have a bad pistol, and they have a melee profile that is not too bad for what they need to be doing. 4 attacks on 4s, damage 2/3 is in a vacuum not good, but 4 attacks lets you parry out and survive a lot of situations where you shouldn't survive. And for those models, that's really important because you might be able to hit somebody and parry in a situation where otherwise you would die, and then suddenly you mutate, and the next turn you get a torment that you wouldn't have gotten. The leader is actually super important. It's not like a typical plasma pistol power sword leader that kills things, but the utility of it is really good, like telling models to dash, telling models to do a 3-inch charge. Mutating models is the most important thing, but a lot of my games, like my leader wouldn't move for like this first 2 turns usually because he's just mutate, tell somebody to dash and stand where he is. Like effectively you can use that like dash order to like kind of get like an 11-inch charge effectively, because you can tell a guy to dash up 3 inches and then he can charge from that position when you activate him later. So there's pretty crazy plays with that. Like you can really threaten on turn 1. The Mind Witch has a lot of cool play, like the -1 APL. So like you select a model that's in line of sight and you just give it -1 APL. And a lot of the time teams are going to set up in full engage against you because you don't really have shooting, which means they're going to be in your line of sight, and you can just like shut down like an alpha strike play that they're setting up. Or like you see they only have one guy in range to move and pay to tap an objective, and then you just -1 APL them, and now they can't tap the objective. And then there's the Iconarch, who's just absolutely bonkers, broken. Like that model, everything about it is just so stupid. It's so tanky. It can kill like anything almost in the game in one shot, outside of like a Custody or like a Nightmare Hulk.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, it's just too good. The auras need to be actions or something. It's got damage reduction minimum 2 on hits and crits. There's no damage reduction minimum 2 really in the game anymore, except this. And it like it's hits and crits, and it's in a 4-inch bubble around him, which is really big. And then obviously the torments and mutants are just so hard to kill.
So hard to kill.
Yeah, and they can kill anything. They're really reliable. Like they very, very rarely actually like whiff. So it's like you kill one, another one. Like if you kill one, it's like a miracle, and then another one pops up, and you can pay a CP to have it fight twice. And oh my gosh, the team is so good.
Yeah,
I think it's the best team that has ever been released in this game. I think they're better than Pathfinders on release.
I think you're 100% right. In the game, in the one prep game that I played against you when I was playing Intercession, like those torments were basically like 1 and 2 shotting every intercessor that they got in close combat with. You know, I'm thinking I'm doing all the right things. I'm actually managing to kill like both of your torments on turn 2, but then turn 3, just 2 more pop up, or not even that. I don't even think they popped up. It was just 3 of your cultists like mutated into mutants. Yep. And then if you don't kill anybody on this team outright, the cultist player is just going to mutate them so they come back with full wounds as a new model. So it's like the only way I can think of getting ahead of this team and stopping it from snowballing, because as the game goes on, every other team in this game is losing more and more resources, whereas the Chaos Cult team is just getting exponentially stronger. You gotta kill like at least a third of the team turn 1. And with the way that like terrain is set up on like open boards now, because you've talked about this with me a little bit, about how like the terrain is set up at tournaments now to adjust for things like Pathfinders, like those really strong shooting teams. It makes it so that it's just a perfect storm for a team like Chaos Cult, which is a primarily melee focused team to just get up the board and in your face and just be able to avoid getting shot off the table. And I think that's the only way you beat them is by shooting them off the table.
Yeah, primarily in turn one. And the teams that can typically run really deep into your backline and alpha strike, or not even your backline, but like up the board and threaten models that are moving up. Those are typically teams that Chaos Cult out activate. So even though, in my opinion, the best way to cripple them is to kill a mutant on turn one, it's usually in the hands of the cult player to keep their models safe, more so than it's in the hands of the other player to like actually be proactive and make that play. Like they have to hope that the Chaos Cult player is sloppy with the positioning of their mutants on turn one, and then they need to be ready and in a position to capitalize on that. And then it needs to work. They still need to kill the model, and mutants are not easy to kill. They're 5-up save, 5-up feel no pain, 7 wounds is like basically like 10 wounds. For me, when I was playing against teams that I thought could do that, like Void Dancers, I took the blessing to give my mutants a 4-up save, and then it's even harder to kill them. I never lost a mutant on turn one, I don't believe, the entire tournament. That was like the one thing I was prioritizing not doing. And I think if you can keep those mutants alive and get those 2 torments on turn two, I don't want to say the team plays itself. Like you can't be like a bad player and win a tournament, obviously, but like it's very, very forgiving. And there was 4 other cult players at Atlantic City.
I think there were 5, but spoiler alert, 4 of those cult players wound up making top 10 at least.
Top 6, actually.
Top 6,
so
yeah.
Cult made up first place, third place, fourth place, and sixth place, which is just outrageous.
Yeah, the team is definitely a problem. So where do we want to go from here? Do you want to talk about kind of just like your games played at the tournament?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it was a 5-round tournament. And also, I don't know if we mentioned earlier, but it was as we found out on day 2, it was actually a silver ticket for the Atlanta Open Kill Team Championship.
That's right.
So that's really exciting. But yeah, no, it was 5 rounds. And I had I will say it wasn't like a huge tournament in terms of like number of participants, but it was kind of a Shark Tank. There were some really good players there. So I guess on round 1, I got paired against James, who was running Felgor Ravagers. I think James ended up finishing like 10th at the tournament. He went like 3-2. I'd played this matchup before on the Felgor side and gotten crushed. So I had a decent idea of how I wanted to approach it. It was on Into the Dark, which immediately favors Cult. I didn't again, so technically this was my first time playing Cult on Into the Dark, but anybody that's looked at this team can wager a pretty strong guess on how they fare there. I really prioritized frenzying as many Felgors as I could turn 2. On turn 2, I had a Torment charge, 2 Felgors in double fight, and instead of fighting one, frenzying it, and then finishing it off with a second fight, I just fought it, frenzied it, fought again, and fought the other one, and frenzied that one. And then he had 2 frenzied Felgors. I just kind of like relied on the fact that I don't think an injured like Felgor hitting on 4s is going to be a serious threat to my Torment, unless it's like the Mangler guy. That was like my plan effectively, and it worked pretty well. He lost models, and the models he was losing were in key spots where I frenzy a guy and all of a sudden he can't tap the point that he's standing on because he's frenzied. And I just traded up over and over again. He did manage to kill a Torment at some point, and then next turn I have 3 of them, so it didn't really matter. The Icon Arc was really helpful, I think, in this game. I'm trying to remember. You played so many games after that. It's like, but it was, I did have one cool play this game, I will say, where a Felgor charged a mutant and killed him and survived on like 2 wounds, and I paid the 1 CP to blow up the mutant and do D3 mortals, and it frenzied the Felgor, and because it was during the Felgor's turn at the end, he just dies. So like if you can kill a Ravager during their turn, that's really bad for them because they lose an entire activation that they would normally get after dying. But yeah, and it was also loot, and the points were pretty safe on my side. He did set up for recon and like recover item and stuff, and I kind of figured he was going to put it in the middle room because on the sides there was walls separating the territories. There was the one big open middle room. It was that Into the Dark mission, and I set up my Mind Witch on the door facing the rooms. That way when he ran a guy up onto the recover item, another devotee opened the door so that the Mind Witch could give that Felgor -1 APL, and then my guy could run up and stop him from holding it or, picking it up or something. And yeah, the team just kind of like grind it out in one. I think it's a bad matchup for Felgors, honestly. Like it's a full melee team, and against Cult, they just hit on fours because of Sickening Aura. So I'm not sure what they're supposed to do. But yeah, I mean, James did pretty well. I mean, he won his next 3 games and had a pretty good run at the tournament.
So what was round 2 for you?
So I think round 2 was my toughest game of the tournament. I played against Joey Diaz, who has been playing Harlequins or Void Dancers, I suppose, for a long time, I think. And he was top 10 at KTO, and he was in that top pod. But I didn't play him then. So I kind of suspected that Void Dancers was going to be one of the slightly stronger teams into Chaos Cult. I don't think it's a winning matchup by any means for Void Dancers, but it's probably one of the harder ones for Cult. And we ended up on an open board that had some pretty open deployment zones. Fortunately, I won Defender and I took the slightly more safe deployment zone. It still was like not super safe. And I basically I had to use like covert guises which is the free dash for equipment for a devotee after the scouting phase. And I used a couple covert guises and some convenient barricade spots behind obscuring terrain to keep some extra guys safe because there just wasn't enough room to deploy everybody safely without doing that. And I kind of knew that he was going to, try and kill as many of my guys on turn 1 as he could. And he did attempt to do that. And he killed quite a few guys. It wasn't like a ton, but, I was losing a lot of models and it was slightly concerning because I had to go down 4-2 on primary turn 1 just because the way the map was set up, I couldn't really reliably contest. I did make one mistake. I tucked a guy up against a window on the side of the Chalnath wall, and I didn't realize there was a window where I put him. I thought I was just putting him against a wall. And then the next activation, I lower down to get a better look, and I'm like, oh god, there's a window there, and I measure it out, and I'm like, oh god, that Harlequin can charge me. Outside of that, I wasn't too worried. I think he won initiative on turn 2. He was able to put a lot of damage down on one of my 2 torments, but I was keeping the other ones safe. And I honestly, in both the games against Harlequins, my opponents were playing pretty well and doing a really good job of taking my models out. But the one thing I think that happened in both games was I recall there would be a moment where I think they'd kind of underestimate or not realize just how durable the Iconarch was, and they'd go for a hero play to kill it, and then it wouldn't die because that model just doesn't die.
Yep.
like the Death Jester in particular, just shooting against the Iconarch. Assuming what I do is I put the just to scratch equipment on the Iconarch, like the Rosary, Vile Blessing, and a Death Jester shooting an Iconarch just will not kill him. His weapon goes down to 3-4 damage. You have a just to scratch. You get 3 armor saves. You're gonna make 1 save on enough. It's just never gonna kill him. So for a Harlequin to make a big aggressive play on a model to try and kill it, and then it doesn't kill it, and then it's a model that hits as hard as the Iconarch does, it's almost always a positive trade for me, or not even a trade at all. I just kill a guy for free. So that happened twice in my games. I was able to slowly even out the primaries throughout the course of the game. And there's one moment where I had a mutant on 1 health that he probably should have killed, and instead he tried to kill my Torment, who was setting up for tear through, and the Torment did not die, and I was able to hide that mutant with 1 health, put him in conceal, tuck him behind heavy cover, and the next turn that mutant becomes
Turned
a Torment.
into a Torment.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, and by the end of the game, it's he had killed a lot of guys, but he only had 2 guys left. I'm just trading back and forth because the team just has so many threats after a point. And I was able to get a 4-2 primary swing on turn 3 and turn 4, and I maxed all my tac ops. And I think the one, other than the not killing the mutant when he had the chance, the one mistake I think he made was and this is quote unquote mistake, he took Surge forward, the recon tac op, which I think you should never score that versus Cast Cult, but it's I don't think there was an easy choice anyway. It's not like he's going to get Courier against Chaos Cult either, but I don't know.
I just don't think there's a good third option. Because what were the tac ops that he took? I'm assuming Mythic Play was one of them.
Yeah, I believe it was Mythic Play and Secure Vantage, which he wasn't able to get the third vantage, or the second vantage rather.
Right.
He did get the 1.
That map only had 3
it only had 3
vantage
vantage
points, right? Yeah. So that was
he would have had to get the vantage in my deployment zone, basically. So again, it's any tac ops that require you to be on the other side of the board, I would not take against Chaos Cult. It's too hard. They move the board against you way better than you do against them, and that goes for pretty much any team. But yeah, it was a really intense game, and we went all the way to time, and Travis let us play out the last few activations, and I took it.
What was the, do you remember what the final score was? Because I remember that was a close game.
I think I had 19 points, and he had like
Was it like 17?
16 or 17, something
16
like
or
that.
yeah, with the fully painted scores. So round 3, you faced off against, this was our friend Nick Craven, right?
Yes, it was.
This
And it
was
was
the dreaded cultist mirror match.
I kind of suspected this one was going to happen at some point. So the worst part about this was that since my game against Joey went to time, I had to pick up my stuff and go right to the table with Nick and immediately play that game with no break in between. My brain had like melted at this point, and then I have to play a freaking mirror match. So I mean, it was an interesting game. It was not a fun game for either of us. It was a total slog, and I'm really glad I only played the cult mirror once this tournament. But I guess it was, we were playing on an open board. It was a really dense open board, which didn't really matter because, neither of us are really shooting. The only way that the board being dense mattered was that we were physically knocking things over nonstop near the end of the game because
Yeah.
there was so much terrain. And we're like, we have so many models. They're like fitting into so many little like tight spots that we have to like reach our hand in. And it's like playing Operation. It's cult mirror match. I think we took the exact same equipment. The only difference in our tac ops was he took eliminate guards and I took route, and neither of us got a point on that at all. We both took tear through, which I took every game, and we both took rob and ransack. And I took those 3 every single game of the whole tournament. I never felt the need to switch it up. And I maxed tac ops every single game except for this game where I didn't get any points on route, but I did get 4 out of 4 on the other 2. I think I played a little more aggressive than him, and I definitely had a game plan for the mirror of how I wanted to approach it. First off, I took a crack grenade on a guy that had a covert guys, and I put him on engaged. That way he could dash up after the scouting phase and have the range to threaten one of the points on his side. So when he moved a devotee up on turn 1 to cap the point, I ran up and threw a crack grenade and got rid of a devotee. And then I also put my Iconarch on engage and recon him up so that he'd be in range to potentially flamer a guy on a point or just walk up and take the point in general because he was APL 3. And on the other side of the board, I couldn't quite get there because there was terrain in the way. So I just like Raycon dashed guys up and created a mutant, and that would become a torment next turn that would threaten that objective. So I killed 2 guys on turn 1 from the Iconarch flaming one of his devotees and a cultist crack grenading one of his devotees. And I did end up losing a guy at the end of turn 1 because I measured out that he couldn't, if I ran my Iconarch onto the point and did the flamer attack, he wouldn't be able to reach my Iconarch with his Iconarch unless he had his leader move and then tell his Iconarch to dash, which would have meant that he wasn't mutating a second model on turn 1. And I'm like, well, I don't think he's going to do that. And even if he does, I'm okay with it because that's one less torment for him on turn 2. Much to my surprise, he did do that. And the other side of it was if he did it, the odds, I think, of his, because he wouldn't be able to get within 4 inches of my Iconarch. So his Iconarch shooting mine would be damaged 2-2 after damage reduction, and I had a Justice Scratch.
Right.
I thought the odds were really, really low of him killing me. I haven't checked the math on this, but I thought it was really low between, me getting 3 saves and erasing one of his dice and having 8 health. He would have had to get, 6 hits basically to go through. Because if only 5 hits go through, I could Justice Scratch. Or no, I'm mathing wrong. He would have needed to get at least 5 hits with me getting no saves. And he got 6, and I got no saves, so the Justice Scratch didn't matter. And he killed my Iconarch. But that meant he didn't have a second Torment on turn 2. And I also set up, kind of in anticipation, if he did that, I had a devotee around a corner that was in charge range of where that Iconarch would have to go. Because in the cult mirror match, you can have a devotee charge a devotee and fight, and chances are they're both going to become mutants. And if you have a devotee charge anything like a mutant or a torment, it's just going to die. Or a blessed blade even, it's probably just going to die. But if the 3 models on that team that you can have a devotee charge into, do damage and live, are the Iconarch, the leader, and the Mind Witch. And so when he moved his Iconarch up, I had a devotee there ready to charge next turn slap him in the face and then turn into a mutant to give myself like, that extra torment that he didn't have already.
Right.
And I went up 4-2 on turn 2 after going 3-3 on turn 1. And then on turn 3, I don't know what was happening. I don't know how this even happened, but it's like slowly he was winning trades all of a sudden. And he went up 4-2, and I was like, "What's going on? How is this happening?"
Uh-huh.
And I thought I was gonna lose, but then on turn 4, everything swung back, like, really, like, naturally, and I just won, and it wasn't like, the game felt close because it was long and it was a slog, but, and we went to time, but it was the last round, so it didn't really matter. But, I won, like, I wanna say, like, 16-12 or 17-12. It was brutal, it was super long, and I think on turn 2, we both gentlemen's agreement not to use Sickening Aura for the rest of the game
Yeah.
because it wasn't gonna make the game more interesting or fun. It was just gonna make it more of
Miserable.
a slog. Yeah, and
Yeah.
more miserable for both of us, so we're like, "Let's just, like, not use this." And we both took Sinude on turn 1 anyway, which is the ignore weapon skill modifiers. So, like, our mutants and torments weren't gonna have the deficit, anyway, but yeah, it was, it was a wild game. It was it was a lot, and I mean, credit to Nick, his only loss was the mirror match, and I
Yes.
think he told me he only came into the tournament with, like, 1 game of cults.
Mhm.
He did really well despite that, so
Yeah. I was paired up against him round 1 at the tournament, and I almost almost had it. I almost had it. I even killed a mutant turn 1, Shane. I killed a mutant. I killed one of his the Blessed Blades, and I
yeah.
killed like 2 other devotees, I think. But yeah, like you said, it's not enough.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking over at that game too and, like, looking at, like, the board state and thinking, like, "Oh, crap, like,
I
is
was
he
in a
gonna
I was in a
he gonna
good
win that?"
spot. I was in a good
Yeah,
spot that whole game, and it was so close, and then it all just fell apart because the trading with that cult team is just so efficient.
yeah.
There's like no, they're just too good. They're just too good
Yep.
in trading. So that was the last game of the first day. So day 2, who was your opponent for round 1?
So my opponent on day 2, round 4 was, another Void Dancer player. It was, his name was Alex, and, it was on Into the Dark, fortunately for me, but I think I got a little too confident because it was Into the Dark, and I didn't really separate my guys in anticipation of, like, a blast play, but, like, I really should have like, by the time deployment was over, I was, like, looking, and I was like, "Actually, like, from his deployment zone, he could easily just recon dash, move, open a door, and hit my deployment zone
Prismatic
with a
grenade.
grenade."
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the time I realized that, it was already, like, going to happen. So I deployed pretty sloppily there. On turn 1, he did that. So on turn 1, I took initiative because I wanted to move devotees to stop more guys from dying or getting hit by the blast. And then he went and hit both my blessed blades with a prismatic grenade. One of my blessed blades had a crack, and he killed them both with it, which was, like, kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
Um, he did sink a reroll at one point, and he had I think that was the lead player with melodrama, so he had, like, another shot at a reroll for free. So not too crazy, but he killed them both. And then I lost like another 2 or 3 devotees on turn 1, and I was like, "Wow, I mean, this is like a lot of casualties. Like, is this what losing looks like with this game?" But I used my order flip on turn 1 with infiltrate to have a devotee charge that void dancer that ran into the room with a prismatic grenade, and then I mutated him with the leader, and then on turn 2 he'd be in combat and he would be a torment. Since I didn't really have anything in that room to threaten the void dancer anyway, on turn 1. And then on the other side of the board, I had he set up his recover item in a way that I could run up with my Icon Arc on the other side of the door, like open, obviously, the open door, and be within 2 of it. So that way he couldn't pick it up with his one guy that he sent to get it. So I was able to actually fully deny recover item this game. He ended up killing a bunch of guys, and then on turn 2, I won initiative, I think. Or no, he won initiative. And this is the play where the Death Jester comes in with prio, and he uses his turn to try to one shot the Iconarch, which, as I was saying before, that does not happen. It's not a thing. So that was kind of like he wasted initiative, sort of. I mean, it's not like he could have really killed that guy regardless with anybody, I don't think. But then because of that, my Iconarch goes next, and he had left two guys in the middle room within 3 inches of each other on engage, which was a big error. And I run in the Icon, flamer them both with Torrent, kill them. I think I left one of them on 2 wounds, and I killed the other one. And then on my next activation, that Torment that was in that one room went, fought and killed the guy, paid a CP to double fight, charged and fought another guy and killed him. So all of a sudden, I just killed half his team. And even with the big like kill lead he had gotten on turn 1, it's like suddenly all that was like nothing. And I might be misremembering, because I know Alex took Surge forward. I'm pretty sure Alex took Surge forward,
Mm-hmm.
because he took Unexplored Rooms and the Grand Act or whatever, and I think Surge
Yeah,
forward.
mythic play, yeah.
So now I'm wondering if maybe Joey didn't take Surge forward. There was something he couldn't get. Maybe it was Courier. No, it wasn't Courier. I don't know. Maybe they both took Surge forward, but there was like a tech op he couldn't get, and I maxed out everything. I kind of just killed the rest of his team. There wasn't much left at that point, and got my torments up in his deployment zone at the end when there was nobody left to get tear through, which is like such an unbelievably easy tech op.
Yeah, so for those who don't know what tear through is, how do you score that?
It's you don't even have to reveal it until the end of the game,
Oh my
and you need to
god.
get 2 torments within 2 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. So it just happens every
Yeah,
game. Like it just
yeah,
happens. I mean, you need to be paying attention to it, but it happened every game. There was like no stopping it.
gotcha. So that was your second to last game. So what was the final then for you?
So it was weird, because after the tournament was advertised as 5 rounds, so there was going to be 5 rounds. But after round 4, I was the only undefeated. So I got paired down against a 3-1 player, Will, who was running Legionary, actually, and he's
Mm-hmm.
a big fan of the pod. So shout out to Will. And he was running Nurgle Legionary. We played on Into the Dark on Capture, which is like, just what do you even do against Chaos Cult right there? Like, that's just the worst ever. And he took a bunch of shooters. He had the missile launcher, he had a plasma, he had the Bellfire, obviously. He did take a Shrive Talon and an Anointed. And then he actually took the Chosen, which I think Cult is one of the few matchups where I don't hate the Chosen. Although on Into the Dark, I think maybe the Aspiring Champ is better, just because he gets the free action, which is really
Right.
good on Into the Dark.
Yeah.
But I mean, so this game was not close. It was the worst possible situation you could end up against Cults on. I don't think there is a team in the game that comes close to having an even matchup in these circumstances, including Legionnaires. And I played a lot of Legionnaires. I thought about taking them to ACO, so I had thought about the matchup a lot from the other side. So I kind of knew what the worst thing he could do to me was, and the best thing he could do to me. So I was pretty confident going in, and effectively what happened in this game, I saw the funniest play
Oh
of
yeah.
all time. It was hilarious, and I know Will would want me to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it. So on turn 2, I set up well, I guess on turn 1, I set up a mutant on a door that was open, and he turned into a torment on turn 2, and I had another devotee that was on the door, and then just to the next to the door, like can conceal, pretty much out of line of sight, was the Iconarch. So that way, anybody that's going to hit those guys on that doorway, it's going to be -1 damage. And if anybody like charges and fights or something, I'm going to be doing 1 extra damage, because they're going to be within 4 inches of the Iconarch easily. But it's just like impossible to deal with. So what he opted to do was go with his Balefire on turn 2, and they're all concealed on the doorway. So in order to shoot them, he has to go within 2 inches. And he says he's thinking about going for the Fire Blast play, which, as we both know, the fire blast is going to blast onto himself. And I tell him that. I'm like, well, just so you know, that's going to blast onto you as well. He's like, yeah, I know. And we weighed it. We talked it back and forth. And I'm like, and then it clicks for me. I'm like, well, your fire blast, which is normally 3/4, hitting all three of these guys would become damage 2/3. And because when you shoot yourself in the blast, an attack dice is inflicting damage on you and you'd be within 4 of the icon arc, your fire blast would become 4/5 into yourself. And then he decided to do it anyway. And it ended up doing like, I think it was 7 mortal wounds on splash alone to himself. And when he shot himself, a crit got through, which was 5 damage, and it killed the Balefire. It did end up killing the one devotee, but the mutant, or I'm sorry, the torment and the Iconarch lived. And I thought it was so funny. We were both dying. It was a hilarious play, and just the fact that the Iconarch got to buff the damage of my opponent's Balefire because he was shooting himself is just so funny. But outside of that, on the other side of the board, his Anointed was threatening me, and I actually charged the Anointed with a Torment and fought it, and the Anointed survived and killed the Torment, which just blew my mind.
Yeah, that, like, I'm surprised that happened. Yeah.
And because normally when you're playing a game of Kill Team and you charge something and it kills you and survives on your turn, that's like the worst thing that can ever happen.
Yeah.
And it had almost no impact on the game because I just got another Torment later. I killed the model anyway. Yeah, I mean, it was rough. At one point, he charged my my Blessed Blade with his Chosen, and my Blessed Blade had 8 wounds, and his Chosen had 6 wounds, and a Grizzly Trophy. So my guy only had 3 attacks, and he was hoping I wouldn't crit, or if I did crit, I'd only get 1 so he could parry it. But I got the crit, and he didn't roll any crits. So he was able to, so he hit me, and then my my Blessed Blade just kills the Chosen, and I reveal Robin Ransack, and then the Blessed Blade activates and closes the door and runs away. And that game ended up, I don't know what the score ended up being, but it was a win for the cult. And yeah, I went 5-0. The other cult players did very well for the most part. The Void Dancers were also very prominent at this tournament. They did pretty
Yeah.
well. I think Joey and his Void Dancers went 4-1, took second place. Nick's only loss was in the mirror. He went third place, and I got a silver ticket to Atlanta, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the, I guess, all the teams that were at this tournament, because there were not very, it was not a very varied field. Obviously, Chaos Cult was out in force with 5 players. It was pretty much just them, Legionaries, Void Dancers, and Intercession, right? And then there was one Casterkin player and
There's one commando,
one Commando and one Hand of the Archon player, it looks like.
and then the one Felgor.
Yes, yeah, James with his Felgor, yeah.
And I think that was the whole spring. Oh, Warp Coven as well. And there's one Warp Coven.
Oh, yep, that's right. Ben
But yeah,
Cash
like
took Warp Coven.
16 of the 22 players were all playing like the same 4 factions.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, the way Chaos Cult is right now is bad for the meta. But do you think there's anything else that, like, factored into just those 4 factions kind of like being the most common at this tournament?
Well, like Intercessors and Legionary, you always expect because they're popular. I have no idea why there was 5 Void Dancers at this tournament.
Yeah.
That was really unusual to me. I think it was just like an outlier. I think it just happened to be that way. And Chaos Cultists just being the current team that they are, I wasn't surprised to see 5 of them. Maybe I was a little surprised just because they're so new, and maybe some people don't have them ready yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was definitely bizarre. Like the amount of Void Dancers, and then the I guess in general, even for elite players, like elites are very popular, but there was a lot of elites at this tournament. I
Yeah.
only played against one of them. I didn't get into any of the Intercession or any of the other Legionaries.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, ACO, I had a great time. Obviously, you won. So that was I was so happy to see you win and get that silver ticket to Atlanta, especially after coming so close to getting the gold ticket at ACO, coming in second, or excuse me, not ACO, KTO.
Yeah.
So yeah, well deserved.
Thank you. And I will be going, of course. I might, go to some other ticket events, and who knows? I'd like to try and get a golden ticket, then I don't have to
Yeah,
pay for my
try and get
flight.
that upgrade. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Atlanta's going to be a blast. I was looking at like the list of players that have already qualified, and it's like, oh my god, this is so many good players. It's going to be so difficult to do well.
hmm
But no, it should be a blast. It's going to be such a high level tournament, and I'm excited to have like content for it, and I think that might be one of the few tournaments that I actually try to like vlog style track, which I normally don't like doing in events, but I feel like that's like a special one.
Yeah.
But that's not till November, so there's a lot of kill team in between now and then,
hmm
and hopefully Chaos Cult isn't egregious at that point, and the meta's like steadied out a little bit. So I mean, that would be awesome.
Do you have any ideas as to how Games Workshop can tone down the Chaos Cult?
I have a lot of ideas, and I've seen a lot of ideas pitched, and a lot of them are great. What I would do, I think you start with the Icon Arc. That model just is needs to be different than what it is. It just shouldn't be so good. It shouldn't be able to, you know, like the auras, I think should be actions. Like I think you can make it a free action even and like have it last till the next activation. And that would be a big nerf, but it would still be pretty, generous. It would make the model more of a support piece than, an everything piece. It's good at everything. It can kill anything. It's a big support aura damage reduction monster. I think you start there. It shouldn't be damage reduction minimum 2. That's just silly. Especially after I just watched my Legionnaires get nerfed. Just because, not because they were doing too well, but because they had damage reduction minimum 2.
Yeah. And then
To
this
see
comes
that,
out, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, there was clearly some. This team was
yeah,
already in the pipeline and getting published before that balance data slate
yeah,
came out clearly.
100%. And beyond that, I think that a lot of people have said this one, so this is not a shock, but there should not be any full healing on mutation. Like a 1 wound mutant should not become a 13 wound torment. That's obscene.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate playing against it so much. It's like I will say I did have fun in my game against Nick. But like
Yeah, Nick is a cool guy.
when that happens, it is so disheartening. It's just cool, I've sacrificed all of these resources. I feel like Norman Osborn in the boardroom. Like, do you know how much I sacrificed? Like to try and kill this devotee who turns into a mutant on 1 health, who's down to 1 health again, and then turns back into a 13 wound torment.
Wow.
It's just ridiculous, man. And I hope with this next balanced data slate, the team is brought to heel because they're a menace right now. And before this, I think the kill team meta, the tournament meta, was in a really good balanced space with lots of good teams all kind of jockeying for that top spot. And this team just comes in and just completely upends everything. It's not even like an S tier team. Like we've talked about the Inquisition team, and we think that that team is potentially like S tier out of the box, you know. But this team is the Chaos Cult team is like so far removed from the rest of the game in terms of what it can do, and just the abilities and the stats baked into all of the models' data sheets.
Yeah.
It's not even gonna take like minute lever pulling to try and balance like one thing that the team can do. It's just like everywhere you look, it's just like, oh my god, this team is way too powerful.
Yeah, I mean those two ideas are like the common things tossed around. I think after that you start to see differences in the opinions of players. I personally would like to see mutants Feel no pain bumped to a 6. Gellerpox mutants have a 6 up feel no pain. And the what's it called? The mutants for Chaos Cult, they move 6 inches, and the Gellerpox mutants move 4 inches. Granted, the Gellerpox mutants can do mission actions, but so many things on Chaos Cult can do mission actions, so it's like
Yeah.
doesn't even really matter. I don't know. It's tough. Sickening Aura is maybe something to look at. That should maybe be like a 1, kind of like Domino Field is, like where it costs 1 more each time you use it.
Yeah.
Because I use it like every turn, even against a shooting team. It's so good. Just being
Especially
-1
against
to
like
hit.
Void Dancers, because it's a 4-inch
Yep.
aura. I throw my troop, or I throw my lead player with the fusion pistol in there. It's only 3 inches, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, so Sickening Aura is 2 inches.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you have a model in conceal on a piece of heavy cover, you have to get within 2 inches to shoot
Right.
it anyway.
Yes.
If you're melee, God forbid, well, there you go. You're hitting on 4s now. So yeah, I don't really know. I don't get it. There's other ideas that I've seen that are pretty reasonable, but I hope that GW doesn't approach this one from like a Gellerpox standpoint, because they've been very careful with Gellerpox. I think rightfully so in that
Hmm.
case. But I think this team, I think you need to have a heavier hand with it, because we can't have this team like this for another 4 months. I think it's bad for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think unless you have anything else you'd like to talk about, I think we're okay to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything else. I mean, shout outs to, again, Travis and Layla and Isaiah, who did a great job running uh, ACO this past weekend, and it was great getting to play against a lot of the Brooklyn players as usual. They're such a great bunch, and some of the Jersey people too. And it was fun. I had a really good time.
Awesome. So, thank you all for tuning into this episode of the Command Point podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening to this on any sort of Apple Podcasts or Spotify, some other podcasting app, make sure to follow us and leave a rating, as that helps to grow our little podcast here that we've got going on.
And we have merch as well, so check that
Oh,
out.
oh, don't worry. I've already front-loaded the ad for the merch
We were
at the beginning of this episode. You don't even got to
Yeah,
worry about that. But
and
yeah,
we were rocking that merch at ACO,
that's
so
right.
got
That's
that
right.
magic aura about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, yeah, buy the Command Point t-shirt and you'll roll more crits. A special thank you to our Patreon supporters and our YouTube channel members. You guys really help out in offsetting the cost it takes to, take the time out of our week to record, produce, edit all of the Kill Team content that we've got going on for you guys, and to help us travel to big time tournaments and participate in them, so we can give you guys a better idea of, how to get better at Kill Team. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching and tuning in. We will see you all again in the next one.